Morning. Sorry about that. I had a technical issue. Had to get on another computer.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right. So let me see. How many people we got? Just 3 people here. All right. So I think you probably got my email about what your current grade is and then what you need to do on the final, or what you need to get on the final in order to get the grade you want. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
So just to clarify, if we have an A or B according to the email, we don't have to take the final?
That's right.
Okay.
If you have an A, obviously, you don't have to be here at all. If you've got a B, then you have the option of taking the final to try and get an A. But even if you bum the final completely, you still get to keep a B.
Okay.
There's nothing to lose. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Any other questions?
How many questions is the final?
Well, have you looked at the final study guide?
No.
No. Well, let's take a look at the final study guide, and we'll get an idea of where we're at with it. Okay, hang on. I'm just going to share my screen here. Give me a second. For some reason, it's not sharing. Give me a second, please.
Take your time.
All right. Okay. Cancel that. Okay. Yes, I'm on a different computer, which means that the connection is not as good on this because it's Wi-Fi. The other one was connected by Ethernet, but my mouse wouldn't work. So it's a problem I'm going to have to fix later. Okay. Somebody's putting something in chats. All right, no worries, good. All right, let's have a look. Let's see. So it's down here. Where are we? Final exam, final study guide. There you go. Let's take a look at that. See what it says. Okay, there you go. Final will be 13 questions or question groups per the practice test. So you'll notice that at times questions were split up into groupings, and but it's going to be the same kinds of questions as you saw on the tests, basically. So tests 1 and 2 will make up 50% of the final, and those will be taken from the sample module 1 to 6 test, questions 13 to 34, and the sample module 7 to 12 test, questions 1 to 16. Test 3 will make up 20% of the final. There'll be 2 questions taken from test 3. And test 4 will make up 30%, and there'll be 3 questions taken from test 4. You'll have 1 hour, 50 minutes. Actually, I might give you a little bit more than that. I'm not sure. I'll take a look in a second exactly. And any relevant reference sheets you got with the test, you get with the final. Let me take a look, and I'll see how long exactly you get to take the final. It might be a little bit longer than that because I might have added some time so that you could fill in the partial credit box at the end. So let me take a look at that. I'm going to stop the share for a second. And I will give you a definitive answer to that. Now, the final itself is at, I think it's 10 a.m. on Monday. That's when it will begin. And you'll have to start it between 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. It'll be under honor lock, of course. So make sure you leave enough time to handle the honor lock protocols and everything. But yeah, by 10:30 you should be starting the test. Yeah, my computer's a bit slow this morning. Okay, so let's have a look. Yeah, so you have to start it between 10 a.m. and 10:30. Just looking at the time now to see how long you have to do it. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, I've got 150 minutes here, so that's actually 2.5 hours. All right, does anybody have any questions? Anybody got any questions at all about grading, about the final?
How will the grading work?
How well? If the final will replace one lower test grade. If the final is lower than all your test grades, all 5 scores get averaged, and that becomes your final grade. And if you want to know exactly what you need, you can look on your grade report, and it tells you exactly what you need to get whatever grade you want to get on the final. I think everybody should have access to that.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any other questions here? All right, any other questions? Grading, final, anything? Let's have a look. Somebody's put a question in chat. All right, no worries. It's fine. All right, anything else? Anything that anybody has about the final?
Is the graphing will be on the final, right?
Graphing?
Like, you have to find like A, B, C, D, and E. Like,
I don't know. I think you might be talking about the lab, Kuro. I don't know. Okay. No, there's no graphing here on this final.
Okay.
The best way to study for it is to do in test 1. Do the module 1 to 6 test, questions 13 to 34. That's this one here, sample module 1 to 6 test. Then in test 2, do sample module 7 to 12, and do questions 1 to 16. Then in test 3, do practice test 3 over and over. And for test 4, do practice test 4. And that will be the best way for you to practice for the final. The more time you put into it, the better chance you'll have at getting the grade you want. But, you know, a word of warning, if you feel like just putting an hour's work in is going to do you any good, it won't. You're wasting your time if you're going to just put an hour in. If you really want to be successful with it, you're probably going to need to put probably between 8 and 10 hours in order to move the needle on your grade, I'd say. Look upon the final as being your chance for redemption. That's the way I view it. All right. Any other questions? Anything else about the final? Anybody wants to?
So is heating curves will be on the final, right?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. Well, let me give you. Let me show you something here. So I'm just previewing practice test 4 here, if I can. So for example, a question grouping in test 4, from test 4 would be VSEPR, which would include all of these questions. So if VSEPR was on the final, it would be all of these questions you see here that related to VSEPR. So it'd be questions 1 through 12, essentially. Then you have MO, that's molecular orbital theory. All of these questions refer to molecular orbital theory. So that entire group could be on the final. I said in the guide you're going to get 3 questions from test 4, and what I mean by that is 3 question groupings. Phase diagrams represents another group. Intermolecular forces is another group. Concentrations is another group, and colligative properties is another group. And then heating curves is a group all its own. All right, so that's what I'm saying. That's why you really have to do all the questions in these practice tests in order to make sure you're studying properly for the final. All right, let's see, somebody's put a question in chat here. Yeah, Leo, that's right. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. Okay, we seem to have lost somebody, but does anybody have any other questions about this, about the final? Best way to study, grades, anything?
So the best way to study would be like taking it by sections and like by parts.
Well, I would follow the final study guide and do those questions over and over. Hero, that's what I would do. Again and again.
Okay.
Until I made sure I understood every single question.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I would do it. Anybody have any other questions about the final?
So the mass percent will be on the final as well.
It could. I mean, it's let's see, that would be one of questions 1 to 16 on sample module, sample test 2, module 1 to module 7 to 12. Yes, it could be. It could be.
Okay.
Questions will be chosen. It won't be every single question.
At least I'll try to prepare for it.
Well, that's the best way. Certainly,
Yeah.
you certainly don't want to not prepare for it. That would be not a good move.
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there any other way that we could study for the exam other than doing the practice tests?
Jeremy, I don't know exactly what you're asking. I can't think of another way of doing it.
Like, I just didn't know if you made like a final exam like overview or something.
Well, I did. Maybe did you come in a little bit late?
A little bit.
Okay, well, hang on. Let me show you again the final study guide. I don't think it's going to impress you though, Jeremy. I've got to admit. I don't think the final study guide is going to give you very much joy here, but it does lay out a roadmap for you to study. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow today.
So good.
Course content. So the final study guide, which is in the table of contents, goes through exactly what you can expect to see. So that's it there, Jeremy. It's actually 150 minutes, not an hour 50. So that gives you time to type in any partial credit in the last box as well. But that's it there. Tells you exactly what you're going to see. And those are the things that you should study. Does that answer your question, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really no other way of studying. But the justification for that, I mean, a lot of people don't like that, but the thing is that the final I look upon the final as being a chance for redemption, because every student had the chance to get an A in all the tests if they prepared for them properly. And if you missed any of the tests, or you didn't do so well on any of the tests, then now's the chance to redeem yourself by actually doing the preparation for the final. So there's no way of doing it. It's eventually you have to prepare for something, and eventually you have to learn the material that was presented to you. So that's the thought behind it. All right. Any other questions about the final? All right. Well, if you do have any questions, you can always email me, let me know, talk to me. Okay. Reach out. All right. Well, we'll leave it there then, and I'll talk to you all Oh, I don't know if I'll see you Monday, but I'll be around on Monday, definitely as you're starting the test. All right. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there, and I'll see you all later. Thanks.
Professor.